Coming up, a Sad Styles production.
Hello and welcome. My name is Mike Ehrenworth, signing on to the sign-off of Frameworth Podcast for yet another week. It's the forum for all the stories you didn't know you wished you knew about the world of sports and sports marketing. I'm joined in studio by a special guest who I will get to in a little bit. You'll notice if you're watching over on YouTube or if you're listening, the absence of his voice. Brian Ehrenworth, president of Frameworth Sports Marketing, is not joining us today. Guess where he is? Another vacation. That's right, but that's what he does, I guess. He puts his work in so that he can take some weeks off. Few weeks ahead in the recording session. It's good to be back in the studio. Before we get started, I mentioned I had someone that I wanted to introduce. I will get to that in a moment, but first, a big thank you and a shout out to all of our listeners who have supported us over the past few weeks and months by leaving us ratings and reviews on either Spotify or iTunes, Apple Podcasts. We have a review that we're going to choose this week. Title, A Backstage Feel, 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. Great podcast, folks. I love having the feeling of being backstage. Very informative and engaging. Awesome. Left by English Pen 87. So English Pen 87, if you're out there listening, make sure to reach out to us, signoffpod@frameworth.com. We're going to be sending you, we haven't done Josh Anderson yet. We're going to send you a free signed Josh Anderson 8x10 photo. Once again, signoffpod@frameworth.com. You've got 30 days from the drop of this episode. Just get us your address and we'll send that out to you. And if you're listening and you haven't left us a rating or review on Apple Podcasts, make sure you do so because we pick one every week and we give away a signed 8x10 photo. Plus, you should just love us. Why aren't you showing your support? How about that? Just go out there, show some love, and get rewarded in kind. But enough patting ourselves on the back. Our guest today was drafted by the New York Rangers in 2009 and has spent his professional hockey career playing around the globe, including a recent stint at the Olympic Winter Games in Beijing, where he represented the men's Chinese national team. He currently plays for the first and only Chinese hockey team to join the KHL, the Kunlun Red Star, where he led the team in scoring in 2021. He's here to give us some insight on what the international hockey scene is all about. Ladies and gentlemen, Ethan Werek.
Thank you so much for having me.
Ethan, thanks for joining us. This was kind of an interesting podcast to be set up. We hadn't come into contact, you or myself, or you with Frameworth as a company prior to a kind of chance meeting that you had. And we'll get into a little bit, people who just heard the introduction will be curious. I'm sure I'll have a lot of questions about what it's like to play in the Olympics, what your professional hockey career was like. But it started off where my dad had a lunch meeting with Wayne Gretzky. I'm sure a lot of our listeners had heard of it. And you were at this lunch as well. How does someone go from playing for the Kunlun Red Star in the Olympics for the Chinese national men's hockey team to having lunch with Wayne Gretzky at a meeting like this? What's the relationship there?
Well, Wayne reached out saying I was his favorite Chinese hockey player, so asked if I would have lunch. And I said, "Do what? I'll see if my schedule's free."
And you made time.
I made time.
Yeah,
I made time midday. Yeah. But no, I was lucky enough. When I was in Arizona, I was drafted by the Rangers, traded to Arizona, and I was called up during the playoff run when they went to the West Finals.
Yeah.
And when I was there, I was sitting in the box one game. There was only maybe 2 or 3 extras, and they had their wife and kids, and they were occupied during the day. And I was a little bored, and I met these guys in the box, and they went to ASU, and they said, "Oh, you should come by our place. We have a house near campus. We go to school here. If you're ever looking for something to do." So I I went golfing, went out a few times with them, and came to find out it was actually Wayne's son,
No way.
Ty, and he could not have been nicer to me, and just kind of took me around a bit. And then the following summer, he was in Toronto doing an internship, so I was really one of the only guys he knew. So we hung out a lot then, and it's kind of been a friendship since then, extending to his brother Trevor and Tristan, and they're very close friends of mine now, and I've been lucky enough to share some experiences with Wayne, and could not find a classier or better human.
It's, we talk about him. I mean, look, any podcast that focuses on hockey his name is going to come up quite often, obviously. And it's always that story about how down to earth he is. Him and the family, just very grounded. We've had his brother on to interview him about the book that he had written with Laurie Halomis. And they always share the same stories, even down to the winery, where they're like, we wanted to build this winery and this estate that felt kind of like our homestead so that we can share it with people. Those core values seem to be intrinsic to hockey and to hockey players, and we'll get into that quite a bit as well. I do want to touch on the bit about the Olympics in a little bit, but To start, let's focus on sort of your trajectory through the pros. As I mentioned, you were drafted by the New York Rangers, and you had said that as well that you were traded to Phoenix's system for a player named Oscar Lindberg. He now plays for Dynamo Moscow in the KHL. Have you ever bumped up against him? And do you guys have that familiarity with one another that you guys were traded for one another?
That's actually run through my head quite a few times.
Yeah.
Because like playing against him when he was in Hartford, and then now over in Russia, we've never really spoken.
It's like unspoken.
Yeah.
Really,
it's unspoken, but it's that familiarity, and maybe who knows what will happen next with hockey. But maybe eventually I'll bring it up to him, and we'll share a beer over.
Do you feel like there's an unspoken rivalry between, even though you guys haven't talked about it, is there like an added, maybe not animosity, but level of competition when you guys are on the ice together?
It definitely goes through my head. I remember, at times looking where he was with points and stuff like that, and he had a lot more success in North America than me. But I think overseas, I've kind of maybe caught up a bit. But yeah, you always, I don't know. For me, at least, I'm pretty competitive, and you always kind of try to see where you are against people. Especially at one point, when I guess two GMs thought we were. We were
comparable in some way.
So I always kind of look at those things.
Well, prior to the draft, you were selected actually in the first round by the Kingston Frontenacs, and the first year you played, I think, was also Doug Gilmour's first year as head coach. Is that correct?
He came in maybe, I think, 3 months in.
Yeah. And what was the difference? So you had 3 months on the team playing without him and playing with him. Obviously, his first year trying to wrangle the team together. What was the difference playing for a team that was and was not coached by Doug Gilmour?
I guess one of the big differences in the OHL, you show up to an arena 2.5 hours before the game, you get off the bus, you go in, and everything's normal. But then when your team's coached by Doug Gilmour, you show up 2.5 hours before, and there's 500 people screaming, trying to get his signature.
True.
So that was definitely, that was something pretty cool. And, growing up in Toronto, I was the biggest Doug Gilmour fan.
Yeah. How can you not be?
And I could never admit it to him, but I was just like, the way he played, just everything about him, he was the best. And did
you model your play style kind of after him as well?
I was not
best as you could?
I was not nearly as tough as him. No, I won't. No, I wish I modeled it more when I was, maybe now but when I was younger, kind of grow up in the GTHL minor hockey, scoring a lot, and you think
you don't have to.
Yeah, you feel like you don't have to. And it took me probably until my 5th year pro to realize I got to change up the way I'm playing.
Sure.
And I was pretty stubborn in junior. I kind of thought I could just score, which I did to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
But then my first couple of year pro, tried to continue that. And it's probably my 5th year pro is when I really kind of changed up things and found I got some more success that way.
Well, I mean, we had Doug on this podcast, one of our earlier episodes, and one of the things that struck me, I mean, a lot of people know this about him who have kind of followed his style, at least in from juniors and then making the jump into pro, that he didn't really want to be a grinder either. He was just kind of forced to in order to keep a spot on the team, and changed his style to do that. A very mature decision to make at that age, recognizing that he could have been, a pure goal scorer, wanted to be a pure goal scorer. I've heard you in interviews talk about some of the differences mentally in terms of where you're at now versus where you were when you had first been drafted into the league. Second round pick, I think 47th pick. If you right now, as someone who's been around the league, who's a veteran now in the KHL, could talk to yourself the day that you were drafted in 2009 and given yourself some advice, what do you think you may have said to yourself?
I would definitely told myself, you are nothing.
Okay.
You are zero.
Okay.
You are at the bottom of the totem pole. Any cockiness, absolutely toss it out of you.
Yeah.
You've done nothing. You've earned nothing. So show up. And I always worked hard, but I think working smart was something I didn't always do.
Sure.
I would have listened to a lot smarter people than me, and definitely did things a lot different. But do what it is. I'm here now. I've had a pretty fun career so far.
Mm-hmm.
You learn a lot, but when you're when you're 18, you get drafted, you have, success in OHL and stuff. You really, for myself, I didn't do things the right way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now you say you've had a pretty fun career so far. Where do you envision things going from here? Are you comfortable in the KHL? Are you planning on potentially, maybe doing another tryout for an AHL team or a professional team in North America? Or what are your thoughts there?
I was comfortable in the KHL till about 2 months ago.
That's a good point.
It's a little different now, but it's really sad what's going on
honestly,
over there. But before that, Russia's been very good to me. Playing in the KHL, and the people there are all super nice, and living in Moscow has been great. Just what's going on now with the war and the conflict, it's just it's horrible. Really, to see so many innocent lives being taken is just terrible. But I do want to play at the highest level. I'd be lying to you if I said I have, it's. I think when you're playing, your dream is to always play in the NHL.
Sure.
No matter what. And it still plays on my mind for sure. I would love to come back, get a chance and things like that. But I also realize I'm going to be 31 for the start of next season. And that might be a little tough, especially with the trend of the league going very young.
Very young.
The AHL is like extension of the OHL almost now with just how young each team is and stuff. And I was watching, since I've been back, I've watched a few AHL games online and things like that. And it's tough because I don't know one guy playing, and I was like, oh, I guess it's been 5 years since I've played, but no one, it's just so young. But I don't know. I just want to keep playing hockey.
Sure.
I love the game. I'm having the most fun I've had playing in the last few years than I had when I was just turned pro. So, I'd love to just continue wherever.
What is the importance to you in having fun playing? And I don't mean that just in terms of like, hey, I'm enjoying playing, but also in terms of your level of play. Do you find you're able to engage in the game in a more effective, efficient way when you're having fun, as opposed to maybe like getting drafted second round is it's nothing to sniff at. You got a lot of pressure on you, a lot of eyes on you. You played in the CHL Top Prospects game, the OHL All-Star game. You're coming into this, maybe you're putting too much pressure on yourself. Do you feel now you're able to kind of approach the game with a little bit more loose, like a loose feeling that kind of helps you play a little better now?
Oh yeah, that was something that really changed for me when I talk about my 5th year pro.
Yeah,
coming out of junior, if I went through a bad game, didn't get a point or something like that, I would just close myself off to the world.
Really?
It almost felt like I had to punish myself because I didn't perform, and it maybe not right away, but over time, it definitely deteriorates your mental side.
For sure,
you can't perform. I was working out like crazy. I was on the ice all the time, but I would get so down on myself mentally, and there would just be so many highs and lows where it just wasn't enjoyable.
Right.
I remember I think my 2nd year pro or 3rd year pro, just showing up to the rink, I'd be parking the right before the game and just being like, oh my God, I have to do this again. Like this is like I was almost scared of the feeling I was going to have after the game. That was like the biggest thing weighing on me.
The pressure you'd put on yourself if you didn't perform. I mean, it's crazy to think, look, most, I would say, of the listeners to this podcast, myself included, have never had anything close to a pro sports career. And yet I bet you the majority of them believe that it's all roses. It's all great. You're a professional sports player. It's got to be. But those people have also sat outside their workplaces in their car wondering what their day is going to bring. And what I love about these sorts of conversations is shining a light. And we've done it with a few of our past guests on the pressures that are involved in a life dedicated to sports. Just like any other job, the only reason you're there is because you put these pressures on yourself, and it becomes a job at that point. And the more it's a job, and I'm sure anyone listening to this will agree, the more you're focused on it as something that is just something you're working towards, and you're not getting any enjoyment out of it, the less effective you're going to be at it, almost 100% of the time. Now I do want to, I know I keep teasing the Olympic stuff, because that is one of the things that I'm most interested in. So maybe we'll get into that a little bit. In 2022, you played for the men's Olympic hockey team in Beijing for China. Your name on the back of your jersey was not Werek. It was Wei. Wei, am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah. You're very good. I thought it was but yeah, it's Wei. I was told after, Wei.
And the full name that you were going under was Werek?
Yeah. I think the correct pronunciation is Werek.
Werek. Okay.
I think so, but it was an incredible experience.
Yeah. And so how did you find yourself? I mean, obviously you're playing for the only Chinese team in the KHL.
Yeah.
Does that have something to do with how you kind of got your foot in the door for the national team?
Yeah. So it's, the story goes, a lot of teams like Belarus, the countries like Belarus, Kazakhstan, what they'll do is they'll bring in players like Canadians, Americans to play within an organization based out of that country. And if you do that for 2 years, 2 or more years, then you can get citizenship and be able to play for that country.
Okay.
So you'll see like a guy like Nigel Dawes in 2018, he would have been a shoo-in for sure for Canada for the Olympics when the NHL guys weren't going. But he was already, he has the Kazakh passport now, and he plays for Kazakhstan. So he wasn't able to do that. He did that years and years ago where he went to Kazakhstan, played in the KHL team there, was able to get nationalized, and that's what he does. So a lot of countries do this. With China, they were originally trying to find players with heritage. So they were something to link them back to their Chinese roots.
Sure.
Some guys it's easier and some it's not as obvious.
Sure.
For myself, I met a guy, Scott McPherson. He was head of the team for a while, putting the team together. By chance, I met with him just about maybe helping me out to get to the KHL.
Okay.
We got talking. He said, I'm doing this team, Kunlun Red Star. It's out of China. We're looking for Chinese heritage guys.
This was prior to 2017.
This is
your first.
Yeah, this was in like 2015, 2016. It was a long time ago.
Okay.
So we were talking, and I said, "Oh, Chinese heritage. My grandparents that were born in China." He looked at me like I had 10 heads, and I'll never forget. We were in a Starbucks in Yorkville. His jaw was almost on the table, and he's like,
"Perfect."
And I was like, "You're signed." And I go, "What do you mean I'm signed?" He goes, "You're signed." And I go, "What?" And he goes, "You are signed. It's okay. We're good." I waited. I played a year. I stayed in North America that year. I played in Belleville and the AHL. The next year I went to the Czech League, and that was kind of an intro to Europe, and which was the most amazing year of hockey for me. Playing in the Czech Republic. And then after I signed in Kunlun. So it took a few years, but and that's how the ball got rolling. And then with our team this year, we had, for the Olympic team, we had 12 Chinese players that played for Kunlun for at least 2 years. Were able to get nationalized. And we had 12 mainland players that were born in China. And these guys, I've never met guys that work harder in my life. They spent over 600 days in full quarantine, just working out, skating, and living in dorms basically in China.
So in quarantine with one another in that space?
With one another, basically in a kind of university setting where you're in dorms, you go work out, skate, work out again. They did that for over 600 days until they came to Russia. They were still basically on quarantine and for the training camps and stuff, and then the Olympics. They showed up every day, smile on their face. All the guys could not have been nicer guys.
Really?
Oh, they were incredible.
How much did that benefit their game? Maybe not their mental state, but their game for spending 600 days in quarantine like that.
The problem is they weren't playing games. They were just, so drills and everything, they had the drills down pat. They were great. It took getting some games, getting used to, because you can practice all you want, but you can never emulate a game. And so when they started playing some games, some scrimmages and everything, they definitely improved, and a lot of guys improved a lot. And again, I can't stress enough, these were the nicest guys I have ever met.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, how many of your teammates on the national team would you have played with on Kunlun? Was there kind of a group that was brought from that team, just based on, maybe some players from all around the world who had some skills to offer the team, or was there any chemistry with the team coming into it?
There was a bit of chemistry. If you look at our roster from this year, I think we probably had over 40 to 50 players on that roster. It was crazy. We were trying, basically this year, they didn't care about winning or losing at all. It
Right.
was all to figure out how we could perform well at the Olympics.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So we were bringing guys in and out of the lineup. My competitive side, it was very tough.
Because you didn't get as much play time, or
not as much play time. We weren't always playing. We were never always playing to win. We were playing to develop. And but I understood it was for the Olympics. This is what we're training for.
right?
And in the end, Goulet, other than our first game against the US, every other game we were very competitive.
I was going to ask, you spend your life growing up in Canada, and then eventually, so many years later, you're faced with the prospect of facing off against Team Canada. I mean, what is going through your head at this point? Being on the ice against the team that you've probably grown up cheering for. You're a competitive person, as you said. You wanted to light it up, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it was funny. People were asking, like, "Oh, how are you going to play against Canada?" I'm like, just gonna remember being cut for World Juniors. Like I'm like, forget these guys.
I got some anger.
I got some anger.
Yeah.
But Goulet, it was such a cool experience.
Yeah.
That first game against the US, we did not perform well. It was our first game in 2 months. We didn't play a game for 2 months. We were supposed to have exhibition games, and then I forget Denmark. We were supposed to play Denmark, and when they landed, they had COVID cases, so that got canceled. And so it was a bit of a shock to the system, but it was great. It was such a cool experience. The Olympic Village is the coolest place in the world.
Yeah.
Like I've never been more excited to go for dinner at a dining hall in my life than that. So.
It feels like from all accounts that you hear, it seems as though it's like anyone who's had that university experience, like that dorm room experience, minus the quarantine that your teammates had. But it just feels like everyone coming together kind of for a little bit of a party there. So the game was Sunday, February 13th, 2022, and you came away with it with an assist. What is that feeling like?
That was great. It was definitely very exciting.
Yeah.
We had that first Canada game. It was the one before that, the final of the round robin, and then the game, that game there.
Yes.
I believe that was the fourth game for the knockout stage. We had a really great first period. We had a ton of chances. Then right at the end of the first, our starting goalie got hurt. And our backup had to come in cold and not really ready. And it was definitely a tough scenario for him. But we were right there.
Yeah.
People think I'm crazy, but I'm really proud of our group because we performed. We stuck with the best of the best, and that was really cool for us.
I've heard you in interviews as well talking about before the Olympics, finding out that the NHL players weren't going to be coming, and pretty confidently, for good reason, saying you think you're going to surprise a lot of teams coming into that. Do you feel like you guys held up your end of the bargain, that you guys were stiff competition for all the teams coming in to play against you?
I think so. Other than, again, that first US game, we did not perform well. A lot of just wasn't great. But against Germany, we lost, I think, 3-2. We were right there.
Yeah.
We were right there. We clean up a few things. It's very different. The next Canada game, I think, we played well. Really, I thought we played well. Obviously, it's very disappointing not coming out with any wins or ties or anything like that, or getting a point, losing in a shootout or winning in a shootout.
Right.
Because I think we could have done that, but I'm very excited to see what happens with Chinese hockey after this.
You think this was kind of a pivotal moment in terms of getting them? I mean, and it all started, it seems, with Kunlun joining the KHL. I mean, that the intention was to get hockey for China on the map. And mere less than 10 years later, they've got an Olympic team. Obviously, hosting it, they're going to get that. But do you see the trajectory of hockey in China getting to a point where at one point they're going to be fairly competitive on an international stage?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think there'll be a Group A team in the next. I even think in the next Olympics. I think they'll qualify for the Olympics, the next Olympics, and they'll continue to be a Group A team. Since I've been back in Toronto now, about 2 months, I've been going to quite a few minor hockey games. Seeing my little cousin plays for the junior Canadians and stuff like that, and seeing some of my old coaches and some of my old teammates from minor hockey are now coaching. So it's funny going to minor hockey rinks. And whenever I go in, they always, can you talk to the team? So I don't really know what I'm going to say to.
Sure,
you got a great job, guys. But I go in, I say some things.
You said I played in the goddamn Olympics. Listen to what I have to say.
Yeah, but I go in and there's a ton of Chinese hockey players.
That's great.
A ton of kids from China that have moved here. Their parents have moved them here. They're here with their grandparents. They're here with their parents, and they're playing. And I'm like, oh God, these guys are good.
Yeah.
So I'm very, very confident that the future of China hockey is very bright, and the government gave us so many resources, are very supportive.
Right.
Our owner, Billy Nong, is an amazing guy. He's so passionate about hockey. He just wants the team to do well, and he wants hockey to grow in China because he loves the game. He's so passionate about it. So I think there's a lot of really, really good people behind it.
You know, it's interesting. Are you familiar with Kerry Goulet? Do you know Kerry Goulet? He was a professional hockey player. Spent several years trying to make the NHL. He played in North America for a while, and finally was given an opportunity to go play in Germany. Yeah. And kind of the similar thing, like really found his calling there in terms of developing hockey for the city that he was playing in and for the nation, and has played such a pivotal role in putting eyes on that scene. And it seems like there's almost an element of that going on with you. Like, can you envision down the line almost being like an ambassador for hockey in China? Do you see that in your bones? And if not that, a post-career professional hockey career, do you have any ideas of how you'd want to spend that?
After hockey, there's a lot of things I've thought about, but if I can do anything to grow the game of hockey anywhere in China, wherever it is, I would love to be a part of that, because the game has really given me so much. I've been lucky enough to play all around North America, play in Europe, won a championship in the Czech Republic, which was incredible. Being able to play in China and Russia. I'm in debt for the rest of my life to the game for sure.
How many teams have you played with?
There was a story that came out. I think I've worn 19 jerseys.
19.
Yeah.
I know Steve Dangle had an article
He's a
recently.
great guy.
I was going to ask about him because you were one of his first YouTube interviews, and he had an article about you back when you were 26, and at that point you had worn 14 jerseys. It's fascinating to see almost like that journeyman status at the age of 26 and continuing to kind of move on and really just sort of stamp your passport everywhere you go and just become a player in these new nations and get a feel for how the game is played in different countries. What is the major difference playing somewhere like North America in the AHL versus playing overseas in the KHL? Is there something specific either about the way the game is played, the perception of the game, the players you play with? What can you tell us?
The AHL is very different from my first year playing in it to my last year playing in it.
Sure.
I remember my first year, we had 3 bench brawls. Whenever you stopped in front of the net, there was a whistle. You're guaranteed to get punched in the face. It was a hard league.
Were you ever doing the punching or just taking the punch?
I took a lot of it. Yeah, I was looking across from me. I took a lot of the punches, but I showed up. I'll say I always showed up.
There you go. Yeah.
But it was funny. Like my last year pro, I remember, stopping in front of my own net, whistle goes, they come in, I grabbed a guy's jersey, gave him like a little nudge. I got a penalty, and I was just thinking to myself, how the heck, how this has changed. But,
because you had left, come back, and it's.
But but the AHL is a great league, great development league. But it's now just it's for kids. It's for the young guys drafted coming out of college. And they're going to see if they're going to be on their NHL team or not.
Sure.
But the NHL is a massive business,
of course,
and whatever way they can, whether it's drafting or college free agent, you know, to get a player, develop them, and then they become part of your team and they move up from whether they start in the 4th or 3rd line, they go up to be that first line guy. Then you decide, all right, we're going to sign them long term, or do we have an asset to trade?
Exactly.
So as bad as it is, it's a pawn in the game. You see where they are, you keep them, and so you have to grow your asset. And it's almost like investing. Some people invest in businesses, whatever. The NHL as a GM or a scout, you're investing in players, right? And see how much you can grow that asset. Where in Europe, it's either, and especially in Russia, you either perform, and if you don't, you're gone. So you have to show up every day. You have to perform. You have to do things that whatever they want. And in the end, it just matters. Game time. Are you going to do something to make your team win?
Right.
And if you go enough games without making your team win, you're not getting sent down. You're not getting healthy scratch. Your contract's ripped up. You're gone, and you have to go find a new job.
Wow.
So you really have to be on at all times.
Now, it seems, I mean, you have so many great things to say about playing for Kunlun and the whole process and everything. I've spoken to some players, some professional players who've talked about a stint that they had in Russia and how the training regiment for that team was just bizarre compared to what they would do. Like running in the middle of winter in the morning. I think Jeff Tafe, who I had spoken to, who's played for a few NHL teams and had a stint over there as well, said that it was one of the hardest experiences he'd ever gone through. When you had agreed to go over, were you worried about any of this? And did any of that come true? Or was it all kind of like much better than you expected?
It really depends on your coach. So my first year, when I went there, I had Mike Keenan as the coach.
Yeah.
And everything is true. Everything is true. It was the closest thing to hell that I can imagine.
Oh my God.
You would wake up in the morning, you do your workout, you do your skate for an hour and a half, you go back and you come back in the afternoon. Again, another workout, skate, scrimmage, and then run. And you get, first day, you're like, oh, this is hard. Day 2, oh my God. Day 3, I can't feel my legs.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, you're at day 26 without a day off. And you're like, you don't even know what time it is.
Oh
you're
my
just
God.
like, yeah. And I will say I wasn't mentally strong enough to go through that. But after playing a few years now, I realize I wish someone would have sent me there at like 20 years old or 22 years old.
Like a boot camp.
A boot camp, and said, this is what you're going to have to do if you don't put all your work into making the NHL and playing in the NHL. And your 3-mile run with John Tortorella at training camp is nothing compared to what you're going to have to do in order to keep playing the game you love. So that was an eye opener for sure. But next year we had Kurt Frazier as the coach, and Steve Casper was the assistant. Alex Kovalev was another assistant, and could not have Casper and Fraz that could not be two nicer humans in the world. Yeah, they were just unbelievable guys. I can't say enough good things about them. So our training camp was more North American based, and I would say more practical and normal. Yeah. It was fun going to the arena, and we had a great year with them. We had a tough time because of COVID. Right. So we actually left, we left for a 5-day road trip, and about 2 hours into the flight, they came back and told us, hey, there's this, thing called COVID. I think it was still called like coronavirus.
Yeah, the Wuhan flu.
Yeah, we didn't have real names for it yet, but the Wuhan flu, and we can't go back to China, so we're going to spend the last 6.5 weeks on the road. Oh my God. So all of us have our, guys had their families still there and everything. I had my apartment, war zone, clothes everywhere. You left the stove on, maybe. Who knows? Rolling the dice. I wish I turned the stove on that year, but and we ended up spending the last 6.5 weeks on the road. We missed playoffs by 2 points. Yeah. It's just everyone was just drained, mentally drained, and guys before games were on the phone trying to figure out how to get their wives. They couldn't fly back to Canada. They had to fly them to Dubai. They had to stay there for a bit, then get back. It was just a nightmare for some guys, but that was great. But get back to the training camp. Sure. Training camp was normal. Practices were normal. And it was a really, really fun year. Yeah. Well, Mike Keenan and John Tortorella, you've had some coaches put you through some stuff. Hey, those are some notorious names. Keenan's on another level. Tortorella is I had him in training camps. Very, very nice guy. and everything. But yeah, Mike Keenan was on another level.
What are some of the other players on the team thinking? I mean, you're someone who's had, like, you've played for professional teams in North America. You were drafted by an NHL team. You kind of understand that this is sort of expected at pro hockey to some degree. There are some players who were never thinking NHL, and now they're being put through the same ringer. Were any of them just dropping out, just giving up, or were they kind of along for the ride?
I think they thought about it, but then the 15th payday comes and they get their kind of, they're like, okay, I can do this for another month.
Yes.
And then, 'cause I think some guys had it that way, but even though it was still, it was horrible. Like, it was really hard. It was mentally draining. I still, in order to play hockey at a very high level, I would do that in a second.
Yeah.
And especially where I am now mentally, I would approach it in a much better way. And to an extent, I respect what Keenan was trying to do. Break guys down that weren't strong enough because they wouldn't be able to go on the run. And that time I definitely wasn't strong enough, but I didn't, I couldn't figure out exactly why we were doing all this. It made no sense on a sports science standpoint. But above that, there's the mental side. And I respect what he was doing. And if I saw him again, I would shake his hand. I'd say, Joy, you won that round. But I definitely appreciate what you did, because it taught me a lot.
You've got a new appreciation for Karate Kid. You're like, what are we doing? This has nothing to do with the sport. And then all of a sudden it ends up helping you down the line.
I wish all it was waxing a car. Yeah. I wish if I got up in the morning and he told me all I had to do was wax his car. Oh God, I'd have the smile. I'd have ear to ear smile.
I would do that in a heartbeat. I always think about the just the waxing a car kind of thing. Like, unironically, the WHA is something that's always fascinated me, and the personal services contracts that some players would be signed to get around some of the age restrictions and some of the cap restrictions and things like that. And there are stories of players who don't quite pan out on teams who are signed to personal services contracts to the owner of a team. And it's like, well, I guess you're just going to wash my car or something. Like, I'm paying you this money anyway. Like, if you're not playing hockey for me, you might as well be like an assistant or something. So some players actually were, unironically, waxing cars there. You mentioned briefly there the COVID situation. And, we've spoken to a lot of past players who have never had to deal with anything along the lines of COVID. A partial, in the KHL, the season was ended early because of COVID. And you're constantly dealing with the what ifs of a player showing up sick, especially the early days of not knowing what's going on and being so close to it. What has that done to change the way you play hockey, or has it been the same mentality for you moving forward? Like, I'm just going to play my game and whatever happens, happens. Or do you have to kind of keep your mind focused on other things at all times?
For me, it was just, I'm here to play hockey.
Yeah.
It is what it is. Yeah, that was about it. But definitely, you couldn't ignore it. Like, when I got 2 years ago, when I came, even this year, we had guys testing positive all the time.
Yeah.
2 years ago, our whole team tested positive except me.
Really?
Throughout the year. I don't know how I missed it.
Someone get some tests done. Maybe we have the antibodies in your bodies.
I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, it was crazy. Our whole team, there was a funny story. We were supposed to play Locomotive, which is Yaroslav.
Yep.
And they were a very good team. And where we play in Matishi, because we're playing out of Moscow now in a little suburb called Matishi, they have a junior team that's very good in the MHL. So we're supposed to play Locomotive, and we find out their whole team's in quarantine because they have COVID cases like crazy. And the local government has put them in the Baza, which a Baza is basically a dorm room where a lot of Russian teams, their players have to go the night before games to be away from their distractions, aka their wife and kids.
Oh, really?
And they're in the Baza from the night before the game, after morning skate, they go back
so that they can focus on the game. That's like a part of the.
Oh yeah, that's a big thing.
Wow.
So we find out Loco's been having a quarantine in their Baza. And they're like, are we playing? Are we not? So we go to morning skate. They still don't have an answer, and then they tell us like, oh, there are MHL teams here. And so they might dress their whole MHL team to play against us. And we're like, okay. But half of us are like, okay, these guys are junior guys, from 6. It's kind of like their OHL, 16 to 20.
Yeah.
They're in first place. We're like, we're 0-14 at this point.
Oh,
you
don't want to lose to that.
We can't lose to these guys.
No.
And so all day it's like, we're so nervous. Like, we can't lose to these guys. Are we going to play them? Are they coming? We show up to the game. They're like, we don't know if they're coming or not.
Right.
We're like, what do you mean?
How
It's 5 o'clock. We're playing 7 o'clock in.
Hour.
Like, we're all going to warm up like normal, and we'll see what happens. We warm up. We find out 2 minutes before warm up, they're like, okay, they're not coming, but because of KHL rules, they haven't forfeited yet. So we have to do warm-ups all like properly.
No.
And we have to go out for puck drop, and then they'll be disqualified.
Oh my God.
So we go through a warm-up. There's no one on the other side. We come back in, right? A little pump-up speech, and we go out. The ref goes to drop the puck, and they're disqualified.
Oh, wow.
So you think, okay, great, we can go. Our coach, Alex Kovalev was our coach that year. Our coach goes, okay, get your practice jerseys on. We ended up scrimmaging for an hour, and then he bag skated us for an hour after. I go,
it's not your fault they didn't show up.
Yeah, I go, Kobe, we just got our first win of the year. We should be celebrating. He didn't like that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love that. That's a great story. I can imagine that the league was full of them at that point. I mean, for other reasons, also the league. The KHL has been through a lot over the past couple of years, especially in recent months. You mentioned some of that earlier with the war going on. Jokerit, is that how you pronounce it? Jokerit. Pulled out of the league, and I noticed that in the standings in the playoffs it was 0-4. So I guess that just counts as 4 forfeited games. So they would have had to go line up at the faceoff dot, pull back at that point. Were they still doing that at that point? Who knows?
I think I think at that point, I think their owners had a little more pull, so they just got the full disqualification.
Fair.
But it's a bit of the Wild West some days, but it is great. I love it.
And even now, going back into it, I mean, COVID is still sort of looming. It has the potential to turn into something ugly again and change the way we're playing. Especially, China has not changed the way that they're going about it. It's still very aggressively quarantining.
Shanghai's locked down.
Exactly.
I think it's 14, 15 million people,
yes.
maybe more. Locked down a whole city.
Whole city.
Imagine New York City right now. You leave your house, and police are there with loudspeakers, like a megaphone, telling you, go back in, go back.
Scary to think of. I was worried because I kept hearing that there was big lockdowns in Shanghai. And I'm like, what are we not talking about here? Is there something like really bad going on? And I just hadn't realized that they've been so aggressive trying to prevent it that they hadn't gotten like a wave of Omicron yet. And then it hit. Is that why you were playing out of Moscow or like because COVID was going on? Cause I know at some points you were playing in Beijing, or the team was playing in Beijing. Yeah. Is it basically just been so you could avoid the
border? Yeah. The border restrictions.
Okay.
So flying over the border in China. So if you were to fly to China, even now, you're a Chinese citizen, you have a Chinese visa, whatever it is, right. You fly in, you have to do a 21-day quarantine, hotel room quarantine, not at house. 21 days in your hotel room.
Oh my God.
They come, they test you every day, they deliver you 3 meals a day, and then when you get out after 21 days, you have to do 7 days at home.
Wow.
Yeah, and when they were locking down, I think it was Guangzhou, when we were there for the Olympics, they were locking down Guangzhou because of 102 cases. Like nothing. That's crazy. Right? So it's I
mean, it's an aggressive approach, one that I hope we don't have to take care of here.
Bold move, Cotton. Real bold move.
We'll see if it pays off. Yeah, that's a good reference. Yeah. And my dad would never make a reference like that. Now, just because you mentioned it, during the Olympics and the lockdowns and things like that, you probably had some people that you knew coming from Canada to come take part, or people. Were any of them coming to you for advice on how to navigate the world of China mid-lockdown or mid-COVID? And was there any advice that you had to give these people?
Well, we were in a bubble, so we were in China, but we weren't.
Right.
We were in a bubble. We were able to go to other events and like special sections and stuff like that, but we couldn't communicate with anybody from China. Like I know some people living in Beijing. I tried getting them tickets. The restrictions: you had to be 3 shots and 3 vaccines in, and you couldn't leave the area, the region. So basically, let's compare it to Toronto.
Sure.
If you left Toronto proper and went to North York, that would be considered leaving the area, leaving the region. So you had to be in Beijing region for 3 weeks. So a very small area.
Yeah.
So there was just so many restrictions.
No way there.
Yeah, no way. Giving advice, people in the cafeteria, again, I guess everything revolves around food, but they would be like, oh, I'll have this, but no tomatoes. And everybody, like the volunteers were incredible.
Right.
I can't say enough good things they've done. There was 1 million of them. They all were smiling. They were all happy, waving. They were amazingly nice. They don't really understand English. They really don't, but they try to.
Yeah.
So the only English word a lot of them know is yes. So you'd have very high-strung, high neurotic athletes getting ready for events or just training days.
Sure.
Be like, oh, I'll have this, but only a little of this. And, oh, is this gluten-free? And
yes.
Oh,
yes. No.
And but they don't know. And so they be getting mad at them. I'm like, no, they just don't know. They want to help.
Right.
But you kind of almost have to do like you have to play little charades with the volunteers because they really mean well. But yeah, it was funny and sad at the same time seeing athletes like getting so mad trying to figure out like gluten-free, is this brown rice or I'm like, can't look like you look.
It's amazing too. Yeah. Like I think for a lot of athletes who are maybe there for the first time, not sure, but I've had my experiences going to China, not quite in Shanghai, like outside of Shanghai for work, traveling and being in a place where legitimately no one speaks English. Mm-hmm. It's something that like I'm very lucky to have experienced that most people do, but that first experience of like I was in a hotel. And no one could help me because literally nobody who was there spoke English and just not knowing how to interact with people, with the variety of languages being spoken at the Olympics as well, it would be impossible for the volunteers to be able to help everyone.
Yeah. You really get an appreciation for communication.
Yes.
Funny Mike Keenan story. He brought me in the office one day during training camp and he got mad at me because I tried to do a toe drag or something. And he was like, get it in. And so he brings me in and he goes, how would you like to be traded to a place where no one in the whole team, in the whole city speaks a word of English? How would you like that? And I go, what? He goes, you know how powerful I am? I can make that happen. I go, oh, okay. And
Jesus.
He
is there any hint of sarcasm in his voice?
No. He's dead serious. He's dead serious.
Has he ever
ready to come at me.
Laughed at you? Has he or laughed with you? Has he ever?
I don't know. I maybe laughed at me, but
maybe.
but no, the whole you gain such an appreciation for communication.
Yeah.
Being in Russia, I've tried to learn the language. I've been there 2 full years, basically 3 years because we spent so much time there.
Sure.
And I've really been trying to learn the language to be able to communicate because it's just, you're in there, whether it's in China, Russia, wherever you are, and you're spending enough time there, that's their home. That's their language.
Right.
You're being invited to come there.
Yeah.
Trust me. I tell everyone, Russia's not begging me to come there. China's not begging me to come there.
Right.
I want to go there. And, these opportunities come up. So I try to learn enough to be able to say hi, I can read some Russian now. So order off a menu and
get to know the language a little bit. Apparently Russian is a really tough language to learn too.
It is hard. So I can read, but I don't understand it totally. And I don't know everything. So sometimes when I try to get cocky and go full Russian and order in that, I do not get what I ordered, but you have to live with it.
Or maybe they just understand that you're trying, but you're not local and they're just going to give you something to fuck with you. Who knows? Maybe it's that.
Yeah. That's very true. I never thought, I never wanted to think of it that way, but
maybe you never know. Yeah. We're running a little bit low on time. I do want to ask quickly with everything going on, do you know if you're going to be able to go back at the start of the KHL season, if and when have any of this been communicated to you?
The KHL announced that they're going to have a season next year.
Okay.
The Kunlun Red Star will be part of it. We will be playing out of Matishi, which is a suburb of Moscow again. Will it happen? I really hope it does. I hope that everything over there gets figured out,
of course,
and people can start living their lives again, and everyone can start being safe. But there's a lot bigger things going on than hockey. I understand that. And so really, I just want everyone to, be safe over there, get back to normal, get things figured out. And for me, I would love to be back there playing hockey and continually trying to, get some playoff games in.
Well, I'll say it for you, because it seems like it's just, on a personal level, like, of course there's so much going on, but on a personal level, like, you just seem to be in such a good place with where you're at right now in your career. It would be such a shame to have something get in the way and prevent you from taking to the ice in some way or another. So for that reason and so many others, we hope everything kind of comes to fruition, but we obviously haven't seen the end of your professional hockey career and we can't wait to see more of it. Leave us off with one story about Tortorella. He's come up a couple times on this podcast. I'm sure you've got something in there. Did you spend enough time with him to see some of his personality, or maybe something that he did to you to kind of catch you off guard or test your willpower when you were on the team?
I just did training camps there.
Yeah.
I met him a few times outside of a hockey rink.
Yeah.
Everyone has these stories about him and things like that. And one of my good friends, Michael Delzato, played for him for the Rangers, played in Columbus for him, and he can't say enough good things about him.
Yeah.
And I had the same experience. He was always super nice to me, really, really smart hockey mind, and someone I kind of always respected. So I don't really have some stories. I just remember, at training camp, he was doing it was like the intro before main camp.
Sure.
And there was probably about 40 of us there, and he's talking about things, and he was like, and this year, Aves, this is Sean Avery.
Yeah.
Aves, no cell phones in the room, no dinner reservations between the second and third. Okay. And then he's yelling about that. I thought that was crazy. And then he said, I remember what he said. He was talking about, we were doing, I think it was a 3-mile run that year. So we had the 3-mile run, and then we were doing on ice testing of 5 laps 6 times, or 3 laps 6 times, then 18 laps 3 times. And he was talking about, it's going to be hard and everything. And he looked at everyone, he goes, and he's calling out some of the big name guys.
Yeah.
And he goes, nobody on this team has made this team yet. Nobody. Everyone has to earn their spot. Except you, Hank. You're on the team. So it's everyone else, you got to earn your spot. I just laughed. I was like, okay, that's great.
Oh, what an iconic duo there. Yeah, Tortorella and Lundqvist. Yeah. You know what it is? It feels like that kind of thing where the stories about him are all sort of media centric. Oh, we don't like what he said at this interview, or we don't like this. But you do hear very often from the players who have played with him that they really take to him. And it seems like that's all he wants is for the players to give him the attention and the respect, and then he's going to take the team wherever he needs to take it. And that seems to be the case time and time again with the teams he's coaching. It's good to hear that you actually had sort of a similar experience there. So getting a little bit low on time before we go, is there anything that you're working on right now that you want to plug? At Werek61 on Instagram, private account. I don't know if you want to be sending people there, if that's not much of your vibe, but anything else you're working on you want to tell people about?
I'm just, I'm really, I'm trying to see maybe life after hockey.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure what I want to do, so we'll see from there. I'm going to spend some time in Toronto, and then I'm actually going in June to Israel for a month, and I'm going to be helping to kind of grow the game of hockey in Israel.
Amazing!
So I'm excited for that. They actually started kind of a summer pro league. I'll say pro lightly, but the guys doing it have done an amazing job organizing things. It's like a 10-game season. It's almost like the hockey version of Birthright. So you go
cool.
over
Yeah.
If people aren't familiar with Birthright, it's a chance for young Jews to go to Israel, learn about the history,
kind of free of charge, right? Like
yeah. And so this is the hockey version of that almost.
That's awesome.
I'm going to spend a month there, and I'll do that. It's like, I think, a 9 or 10 game season, and I'm just excited. I love Tel Aviv.
That's really cool.
Fun to live there for a bit. But
your grandparents, I think, were Russian-born Jews who moved to Israel.
Yeah, my dad was born in Israel. He grew up there for a bit before they came to Canada.
Nice.
So I've been able to go back a few times, and it's a great place. So other than that, I'll be in Toronto. So
perfect.
Yeah, if anyone needs their car washed, I guess. I don't know.
And if anyone needs some dolphins trained, because we didn't get into it, but you have spent time as a dolphin trainer. That's correct, I think.
Yeah, Carlo plugged me on that one. He some of my funny lines, I guess, tell people I'm a dolphin trainer. But
it's great.
He was nice enough. Again, last year we were a really bad hockey team, and he was telling me, he goes, I almost did it to you, but I didn't. I was going to ask you, what's colder, Moscow winters or your plus minus last year? I was like, oh, thank you for not throwing me under the bus. But I like. He's like, we ran out of time on it.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah,
a great interview if you can look that up as well. I think it was TSN Radio.
Yeah, TSN
yeah. Well, hey, thanks again so much for joining us. This was an absolute blast. A great opportunity to get a sense of what professional hockey can be like outside of just the NHL. I mean, it's such a large world of hockey. You're clearly a global citizen who spent so much time in so many different places with roots, it seems, everywhere. So I thank you for coming on and sharing your story. You're welcome back anytime.
I appreciate that. Thanks so much for having me.
So once again, thank you on behalf of Brian Aaronworth, who's not here, Ethan Werek for joining us, myself, Mikey Aaronworth, host of the Sign Off Podcast. This is us signing off. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we made it to the end of yet another episode. Thanks again so much for joining us. You can find videos of all of our episodes on YouTube by searching the Sign Off Podcast. You can also follow us on Twitter at Frameworth Sport or Instagram at Frameworth Sports. And hey, if you're not sick of me yet, you can find me on Twitter over at Retrograde Mikey, or you can always find me embarrassing myself over on Instagram at Aaronworth. The Sign Off is a proud product of Fadoo Productions and Sad Styles Productions, executive producers Mikey Aaronworth and Andrew Bascom. Until next week, this is Mikey Aaronworth, signing off.
Furnished by Sad Styles Productions.
Get into it!